that marriage certificate, she was already plotting her divorce. Meghan has been preparing, make no mistake about that. She barely tolerated that guy. She's never told him she loved him in. That interview, wonder what on earth Harry thinks of all this. Is he quite happy that this relationship has been instilled in Meghan and Mark? And Mark is from the Prince Harry discovers his love story was actually a strategic climb, and divorce is now inevitable. Me and on her stomach, but not because she had any talent of her own. She's done with the food. And the thing is that the reason why Meghan Markle has leaked 3 weeks, not 3 years, not irreconcilable differences slowly growing over time. Just 21 brutal, sleep-deprived, paranoia-fueled days that turned Prince Harry from a man clinging to his fairy tale into one quietly Googling divorce lawyers at 3 a.m. The irony. For someone who once said he'd escaped the palace to find peace, Harry had never been more trapped inside his own head. In the background, I am 100% certain, in my honest opinion, that they had planned this all from the start to hook a prince and make everything possible. Enough to scream that something had been hiding in plain sight all along. The bag itself wasn't designer, wasn't glamorous, and certainly wasn't meant to draw attention, which ironically made it even more suspicious because nothing about Soho house culture is accidental. Least of all what gets seen in photos that circulate among the wealthy, the powerful, and the strategically placed. Oysters. If you hook a prince wealthy enough with good connections and hey-ho, they did it, and it always seems with Meghan that everything comes back to Soho. It really is quite shocking when you look at it, how exactly Harry understood that world far better than people like to admit. He had grown up watching doors open and close based on surnames, proximity, and usefulness. And Soho House was one of those places that pretended to be casual while functioning like a velvet rope factory for ambition. You didn't just stumble into that ecosystem without someone vouching for you, guiding you, and quietly investing in your presence. That bag meant someone had opened the gate, and gates like that never open themselves. Is because in her head, there is no way in hell that she can conceive that she's not attractive. There is no way that Meghan. Suddenly, memories Harry had never questioned began rearranging themselves in his mind, lining up like dominoes waiting to fall. Meghan's ease in elite rooms, her familiarity with people who barely acknowledged strangers, the way she navigated conversations that usually required years of conditioning, the uncanny way introductions always seemed to happen at just the right moment. At the time, Harry had called it chemistry and luck, because love makes coincidences feel romantic instead of suspicious. Now, stripped of that lens, the whole thing felt rehearsed. Should be asking this very question. Is she on their payroll? Because she was their ambassador as such. She was always pictured there pre-Harry. They even went there on their first date. And can you Remember, what unsettled Harry most was not the yacht or the trip or even the lifestyle, but the realization that this was not a random rich person vacation, but a Soho house environment, which meant curated guests, controlled access, and intentional overlaps. That bag represented a network, not a weekend. And networks existed to produce outcomes, not memories. For the first time, Harry allowed himself to ask a question he had spent years aggressively avoiding. How many of Meghan's chance encounters were actually engineered moments designed to move her closer to men with influence? Basically, F doesn't want to sleep with her because that's how she got to where she is right now. She's used to using her body for what she wants. She's used to dumb. The more he sat with it, the more ridiculous his previous blind trust began to feel, because this wasn't about judging ambition, but about honesty. And suddenly, it seemed like he had married someone whose past had been edited for tone, not truth. The bag was a symbol of a world that operated quietly, efficiently, and without emotional attachment. And Harry, for all his privilege, had never imagined himself as a product of that machine. For years, Marcus Anderson had existed in Harry's mind as background decor. The kind of social accessory you barely register because everyone insists he's harmless, charming, and simply well-connected, which in elite circles is usually code for someone you should absolutely be paying closer attention to. Harry had accepted the story presented to him without question, largely because Marcus was framed as Meghan's quirky Toronto friend, the stylish insider who loved a party and somehow always knew where the best ones were happening. Now that she's been dumped, now that she sees that she no longer has that hold on Harry, things have taken a turn for the worse. And Harry is in absolute panic. That illusion disintegrated the moment Harry started digging beyond surface-level profiles and carefully scrubbed bios. What emerged instead was not a social butterfly, but a social architect. Someone whose influence wasn't loud because it didn't need to be. Marcus didn't chase visibility. He controlled it. Old society blogs, archived interviews, and half-deed articles painted a remarkably consistent picture of a man who did not attend events for enjoyment, but attended them for placement, positioning, and outcome. The language used to describe Marcus was never accidental. Connector appeared often, but so did terms like fixer. The narrative explores a profound shift in Prince Harry's perception of his marriage, moving from a belief in romantic destiny to a haunting suspicion of calculated engineering. Central to this realization is Marcus Anderson, a Soho House insider described not as a friend, but as infrastructure. Harry begins to view Marcus as a gatekeeper who curates elite social circles, positioning ambitious individuals with strategic precision. Harry's internal crisis deepens as he examines Meghan's role within this power system. He realizes she wasn't a passive participant, but a master of the environment's unspoken rules. This reframes their entire meeting. What Harry once saw as a fated encounter now feels like a scripted event. The organic nature of their romance is replaced by the cold reality of intent, suggesting Harry was a target rather than a partner in a story. Disturbing allegations surface regarding private recordings and leaked videos, drawing unfavorable comparisons to other high-profile legal battles. These claims suggest a level of surveillance within the marriage that shatters any remaining sense of intimacy. Harry is forced to confront the idea that his most private moments may have been documented as collateral, turning his home from a sanctuary into a place of profound vulnerability. The prince begins to investigate the financial inconsistencies of Meghan's pre-royal life, finding that her lifestyle far exceeded her documented income. Calculations of designer wardrobes and luxury travel reveal a massive deficit that arithmetic cannot ignore. He discovers that her Soho House membership and associated costs were comped or underwritten by anonymous corporate accounts, suggesting she was being funded as a strategic investment. Harry finally listens to archived voicemails from Prince William, messages he had previously deleted in fits of defensive anger. William's voice is described as pleading and informed rather than jealous, warning Harry about documented ties and the non-random nature of Meghan's proximity to royal circles. Harry realizes his brother was trying to protect him and that his own loyalty was actually a refusal to see a very visible, warned-of truth. The emotional rot in the marriage is characterized by a deafening silence rather than loud arguments. Harry suffers from chronic insomnia, replaying a decade of memories through a filter of suspicion. Every spontaneous moment now feels rehearsed. He experiences a physical revulsion to closeness, as intimacy feels dishonest when shadowed by questions of intent. He wonders if he married a woman or a role perfected for a specific audience. The narrative touches on personal insecurities, including Harry's struggle with hair loss and the side effects of medications. These details, allegedly leaked to the press, are viewed by Harry as a betrayal of medical privacy. He suspects that only someone with intimate access to his home could have shared such specific information. This reinforces his fear that his personal vulnerabilities are being used as leverage in a brewing power play. Harry's decision to seek a divorce is portrayed as a rational act of self-defense rather than an emotional outburst. He follows his palace training, gathering documentation and consulting legal experts with clinical discretion. He realizes that staying in the marriage would require a level of self-betrayal he can no longer sustain. The choice is framed as a move toward autonomy, escaping a relationship that felt increasingly like a cage. The process of separation is handled with chilling methodology. Harry no longer seeks reassurance or explanation from Meghan, as he believes honesty is only delivered by her in safe amounts. He moves from being a man who reacts to family pressure to a man who acts for his own survival. The irony is noted. The man who left the monarchy to escape control found a much more intimate version of it within the walls of his own California home. The reaction from Meghan's camp is described as one of genuine shock, as she reportedly believed the relationship was manageable through strategic messaging. She attempts to frame the rift as a misunderstanding fueled by media pressure, but Harry is no longer receptive to redirection. The mismatch in their communication styles, her seeking to smooth and him seeking boundaries, makes any form of reconciliation functionally impossible. As the divorce initiates, the public narrative shifts. Harry refuses to engage in the spectacle or provide the dramatic interviews the media expects. He understands how narratives are constructed and chooses to starve the machine. His silence is his most powerful tool, marking a final break from the performative nature of his recent years. He accepts the humiliating emptiness of the truth over the comfort of a well-curated public lie. The Soho House connection remains the recurring theme, described as a toxic ecosystem that Harry can no longer ignore. Every investigation into his wife's past leads back to the same elite club and the same shadowy figures. He realizes that the grass was not greener, and that his attempt at a private life was actually a highly public, highly managed project. The realization is devastating, but provides the clarity needed to finally walk away. Harry reflects on the cost of his romantic destiny, concluding that he might have been the most expensive return on investment for the network that positioned Meghan. This realization strips away his last remnants of pride. He sees himself as a pawn in a much larger game of social climbing and brand building. This epiphany, while painful, acts as the final catalyst for his departure, as he refuses to be a win for the stakeholders anymore. The narrative concludes with Harry reclaiming his agency. He is no longer the boy who felt unwanted, but a man who realizes he was wanted for all the wrong reasons. By letting the truth guide him, he escapes the nightmare of a curated existence. The divorce is not just the end of a marriage, but the end of a decade-long period of manipulation. He steps into a quiet, uncertain future, finally free from the scripts written by others. Final insights suggest that the collapse was inevitable once the arithmetic of the relationship stopped adding up. Love can survive many things, but it cannot survive a complete lack of transparency regarding one's past and purpose. Harry's journey is presented as a cautionary tale about the dangers of ignoring red flags for the sake of a narrative. He leaves with nothing but his autonomy, which he now values more than any royal title. The role of the media and insiders is highlighted as a weapon used against the prince. The leaking of specific medical and personal details serves to isolate him, but ultimately backfires by proving his suspicions correct. He realizes that the IUI devil is never idle, and that the curation of his life was ongoing. This realization provides the merciless filter through which he now views every interaction, ensuring he is never targeted again. The story highlights the tragedy of the broken bond between brothers. William's warnings, once viewed as interference, are now seen as the only genuine anchors Harry had. The long pause from the Soho House insider Harry called confirms that the secrets were well known to everyone but him. This isolation is the most painful part of the revelation. Knowing that his rebellion was actually a walk into a trap that others saw clearly. The sex shock headlines and greatest hits videos are background noise to a much deeper psychological reckoning. Harry's departure is an act of reclamation, proving that even a man born into a system of control can eventually learn to spot the strings being pulled. He chooses the solitude of truth over the warmth of a strategic lie. The final paragraphs emphasize that there is no way back to the version of the relationship that once felt real. Once the context of a life is rewritten, the emotions follow. Harry's story ends not with a bang, but with a quiet exit from a stage he never realized he was standing on. He is finally a private citizen, not by title, but by his refusal to participate in the curation of his own life, leaving the system to find its next project. If you like this update, subscribe to Behind the Curtain.